There were times where I had to raise my voice to get people's attention. There were times where I had to get a kid and get in their face and like let them know. And the level of intensity was intentional because I knew that there was a problem that we needed to fix. Problems and calamity and failure sometimes surround success. Sometimes they are a precursor to success. And the only way you know that though is, if you've walked through the fire.
My dad taught me this: calamity breeds opportunity. And now I think of it in my own career where the biggest shift to wealth, which means there's going to be a lot of opportunity somewhere from someone. So not only is the technology there, but if you are going to be in this recurring revenue model, built out SaaS products, you can't price yourself out where people will figure it out themselves.
Yeah, give people a great product that performs a great service
at a great price.
That's priced in a way that will disrupt the market. How could they say no? I've overpaid for products and services, and after you're just kicking yourself because you're like, I just spent how much on what? You know what I mean? Like, it's just whatever. It's like, when you have a great meal, you don't really worry about the price. When you have an okay meal and you spend a lot of money, you're like, man, I just spent how much on what? And let's be honest, like, everything is more expensive now. As a business owner, like, you're responsible for being a faithful steward of what you've been entrusted with.
Are you stuck in that $3 to $10 million year-over-year revenue? Roofs in a Box is your all-in-one growth partner for modern construction companies. They combine AI, virtual staffing, and CRM solutions to help streamline operations. Replace your high fixed overhead with cost-effective systems and support. They empower you to run a smarter, leaner business, freeing up capital where it matters most. Mention this ad to save 10% on your next Roofs in a Box purchase. This episode of Pain Points is brought to you by Ringba. If your business relies on phone calls, you need to be working with them. Their technology will help you get the most money out of your marketing campaigns. Their call exchange, Ringba X, can deliver inbounds on demand to help grow your customer base. Now, I want to be transparent. Ringba and Adam did pay me to deliver that message, but I'm also a customer, and I've watched them help dozens of companies become more successful over the years. So if you sell a product or service over the phone, I guarantee a moment with their team will be worth it.
All right, man. Welcome to another episode of Pain Points, where real pain equals real growth. Today, we got my dear friend, Sean Dougherty, president or CEO of Providence, multiple Providence Media, Providence. I mean, how many different brands do you have under the Providence umbrella?
A couple. Maybe one too many. I mean, who knows, right? Like, I think Providence Tax, Providence Tech, Providence AI, Providence Senior Care, and then Providence Digital Marketing. Those are the primary businesses.
And soon to be roofing.
Oh, yeah. Really excited about that.
Me too, man.
Probably most excited about that.
Actually, ditto. It's just exciting. I always love just the opportunity to work with great business owners, but just like-minded people.
Yeah, I mean, and we've been in a relationship for some time, business relationship, but also personal relationship. And I think, when you can pull a business relationship out of a really good personal relationship, like we've had just time to get to know each other, right? See how we deal with other people, other business owners, other business processes. And I mean, I've learned so much just from watching you and being in the room with you. And I think that was probably one of the greatest things early on in our relationship you did, was just invite me in. And I'm grateful. Like, this is such a unique business, digital marketing specifically, because I think that's where our relationship started. It's such a unique business because it's not something, I mean, you could go to school for it, but most people kind of learn on their own, right? And you really, to get in the rooms with the right people, you've got to be let in, and you're so great at that. You number one are just surrounded by phenomenal people, people of faith, people of integrity, people of conviction, and then there's Mike Minetti. So it's a bit of a contrast now. Mike, we love Mike. Just joking. Mike is one of those guys. And so I just think getting to know some of those guys and then seeing the people that you surrounded yourself with, for me, has just been like, oh, wow, it's great. And I mean, the people who you do business with, who you have relationships with, they're just so open in how they do everything, right? And, there's, your business partner, Dave, always says success leaves clues. And, you get around enough successful people, you start to hear like common themes and like common business practices, common personal practices. And the coolest thing for me is like seeing the discipline of the people that, you have around you, the personal discipline, the discipline in business, and then the men of faith, You know, I mean, we were just in Vegas a couple of weeks ago, getting to sit down with Matt and, you know, just hearing about how he lives his life, how purposeful and intentional he is in his relationships. And, you know, it just really challenges you because, you know, at the end of the day, it's just not all about your P&Ls.
Yeah.
You know, it's just so much more to it. So
Although there's a lot of meat on what you just said. First of all, iron sharpens iron, right? Men of faith, it's like-minded people feeding each other, right? Helping each other, shoulder to shoulder kind of analogy. And then secondly, I stole this from one of your C-suite people, Mike, says he doesn't like people that act in scarcity, right? And you're saying letting people in. And I actually plagiarize that, and I use it a lot now, because I always say if I give an olive branch and I let you in and I remove any obstacles to business, and we don't do business, we're never going to do business anyway, right? Because I don't have it. Me personally, I have too much going on. You mentioned all these companies. I'm the same way. I have too much going on to come back and try to see if there's an opportunity here. If I lead with the chin, and I tell you what the opportunities are, or my answer is yes, let's do business. What does it look like? And we don't do business. Like I said, we were never going to do it anyway. So I love that scarcity mindset. Like, don't act in it. Don't act, what can I get out of this? It's just kind of, let's just do something, see how it works. And then hopefully, like, you know, if God willing that, you know, we both prosper from it.
yeah, removing all the obstacles is great. Right. Like, it's just incredible. And I've heard you have a couple of those conversations and I've just been blown away by them because, like, look, at the end of the day, if you did remove all obstacles and there weren't any obstacles when it came to working together, would you still?
Yeah.
Right. And that gives you such an even playing field.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it really, well, I think, you know, what you said too about the scarcity mindset, I think in order to be able to overcome that and operate from a different place, like a place of abundance, you have to first come to terms with the fact that you might be operating in a scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
And you have to be honest with yourself, right? And that's a challenge because I think for a lot of us as like entrepreneurs, as like big dreamers, like we have this like kind of disconnect with reality.
Right.
Right. And there's a healthiness to that because like where we are today isn't where we're going tomorrow,
Yes.
hopefully. Right. And we're driven by hope and we're driven by the possibilities of what may be, you know, and the scarcity mindset is always going to prevent you from, I think, really becoming everything God intended you to be.
Right.
You know,
Well, let's start with that before we even talk about anything in marketing or AI or business or whatnot, because this is the truth about entrepreneurship, right? I've had days where we're killing it, right? And the next day, man, I always say I'm wired agnostic because I can go to bed with the biggest amount of faith and wake up paralyzed by fear.
yeah.
And that's business, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're having these great successful days and then all of a sudden someone doesn't pay their bill or whatnot. And let me ask you, how do you function in a non-scarcity mindset, especially when economic times are down or business is struggling or seasonality is, hey, I'm going to be in a cash flow crunch for the next 3 to 6 months. How are you consistent in your faith and belief?
Enjoying the show? Like, comment, and subscribe. Pain Points is all about helping contractors and business owners avoid costly mistakes, find new opportunities, and grow profitable companies. Thank you for being part of the community. Let's build together.
System through those times.
Well, I think, I mean, there's a reason why all the companies are called Providence, right? Like there just is. And I think, you know, I could really honestly say that I don't think any good or even great thing that's ever happened to me, I've ever done on my own. I always felt like God's at the right time brought the right people and the right process. And I think the way that I overcome it is with just deep conviction that I'm doing exactly what God wants me to do, you know? And, you know, I think that sometimes there aren't signs, right? Quite the opposite, right? There's despair, there's frustration, there's friction, you know? I mean, you referenced iron sharpening iron, like it's just a great idea and concept, but man, when iron sharpens iron, there's sparks that fly, you know what I mean? And when those sparks are flying, like you have to have such a deep seated conviction that you're headed in the direction that you're supposed to be headed, in spite sometimes of all the evidence pointing to the contrary. Right. And so I think for me, it's like when I first got started in these businesses, when I first kind of went out on my own, I had a conviction from God. I really had a desire, and really it was driven from my desire to see other people be successful. I had some success in lead gen. I was led in the door into these rooms that I had no business belonging in, but I was so grateful for that. I started to develop a real appreciation for the people who did let me into those rooms. And then I wanted to be the guy that let other people into those rooms. And so I was a youth basketball and football coach, high school basketball coach for over 10 years. And, and then I'd been in lead gen for like 10 years. So there's, a little gap there. And so I started to think about some of the kids that I coached, the talent, the quality traits, the character. And I was like, wow, you know what, if I could provide an opportunity for some of those people to walk in and to have some of the same type of success, I mean, I would be so grateful for that. I was grateful for that. So I just started to have a vision.
You've been amazing at that. A lot of the guys that you have around you, especially in your C-suite, I just love the fact that you do have that faith-based foundation, mentorship, coaching, but not just in like sports or academics or whatnot, but it's going further into adult life, right?
Yeah.
Saying, hey, talk about the scarcity mindset or the lack thereof, right? It's kind of like, hey, let me invite you into my world, not just as like a leader, but partners even.
Yeah.
Like, especially like with Dofi, for instance.
Yeah. I mean, look, if I've always had a good eye for talent, and I think it was, I didn't realize this, but as you and I talked about this, and we talked about this in the past, is like playing pickup basketball as a kid. It's just such a weird social interaction when you tear it apart and like look at it for what it is, right? Like if you're going to go play basketball and you're by yourself, you're going to go to a court and there's already people that are playing, right? So in order to get into that game, you've got to call next.
You got to call next.
Yeah. Who's got next? And you got to walk in and, that could be 15, 20, 30, 40 people at that court. You've got to speak up. All right. And if you find out somebody has next, the first thing you do is you ask them if you can play with them. Right. And I mean, I'm short and I'm white. And so I don't look like a basketball player. So I'm already at a disadvantage. So people are looking at me, especially if they don't know me, and they're like, hey, we're not going to let you play. We want someone tall. We want someone athletic. We want someone that looks like a basketball player. And so when I didn't get picked up, you get next. And then the next thing you do is you have to start to put together your team. So I would always like assess the games that were being played, the talent level, like, okay, wow, they had a couple of big guys and maybe they weren't that fast. So I started to really, from a analytical standpoint, put together the best team on the basketball court with the guys that I chose that would give me the best chance to win. And, it's funny, it wasn't until maybe 20 years after that, I started looking at some of like, you start to study your success, and it's important. You want to study your failures too, because you don't want to repeat the same mistakes, but you really want to look at the successes you have and ask yourself, why was I successful there? And I think as I started to have some success in business, even before I started my own company, at the companies I was working with before, I'd always start to put teams together, right? I realized that like with a good team, you could accomplish anything. Like my deficiencies, I don't want to find someone to work with that have the same deficiencies. I mean, sometimes that works, but if I can get someone with maybe different strengths, so that our deficiencies don't align, like our strengths actually are opposites.
I always say if I have 9 yes guys, I have 9 too many employees. No, I don't want Ed clones.
No.
Yeah, I want people that are unique and true to themselves, and people have strengths where I have weakness. That's right.
Yeah.
Everyone has things they do really well and they have things they do really bad.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, if you're in a basketball court, you have a great rebounder. Who's running the assist? Who's scoring?
Yeah.
Who's defending the best player? Does the best player struggle against quickness or height?
Yeah.
So you have to assess, right? You have to assess the talent you have and don't have, to get better.
Yeah. Assess, recruit, and then develop. Right. I think that's the big thing. Is like what you sow today grows tomorrow. And I've never seen that more true when it comes to investing in people. Right. So
I think the struggle, like I was just talking about this on the EOS meeting the pod right before this. We were talking about in leadership roles though. And this is my biggest struggle as an entrepreneur sometimes is I'm so big on developing internally that sometimes I need to go outside, right? If I have a basketball team, so to speak, that have 3 rookies, it's great to have that they're fast or they have talent or whatnot, but I need leadership, right? And especially in the C-suite or in operations, sales, finance, I can't have people learning necessarily. I can mentor up if I have the right leadership above them. But I feel like as an entrepreneur sometimes, and I'd be curious to see your experience, like having this philosophy of developing and building is one thing, but how much more could they have grown if I put someone above them that has done it before, that has paved the path, that can kind of show the roadmap that this is what it's supposed to look like. Because it's great for have like this entrepreneurial, visionary, quick learning mindsets, but it's still hard to bondo and bailing wire and try to improv in the moment and trying to figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, number one, you've got to have great systems and processes, right? As an entrepreneur. So you have to be able to assess your business, where it's at, and the people in a fair and honest way, right? Not based on personalities or likability. You know what I mean? Like we all like being around jovial, funny, charismatic people. But if you get a ton of those in an organization, right, and you don't have someone who's administratively gifted, right, who's black and white, who sees things for what they really are, you could start to deceive yourself when it comes to the success that you think that you're having as a business, right? And like most of the guys that we know that have started in this business, failed in this business, because no one's had success from the beginning, or I shouldn't say no one, but very few people have, right? Like usually success comes after failure, and sometimes failure multiple times, right? Like there's that crazy statistic about how many first-time businesses fail. But the crazier statistic for me is that the lower percentages of the second businesses that fail. The problem is that once people fail, they don't get back on the bike again, right? They've scraped their knee, they bumped their head. They've realized that from a risk tolerant standpoint, they don't have, maybe they think, the aptitude to be able to overcome some of these things. And I think, man, resilience in the face of failure, and, you know, going back to what we were talking about before, just the conviction that you're really doing what God intended you to do, is super, super important. And, you know, it's interesting because I prefer building up from within, but I've heard from multiple people, especially people who've had multiple exits, after they sold their first company, the first thing they did in building the next company, they really, really focused on talent acquisition. And I think that's like the modern day gold rush, right? It's just talent acquisition, is getting people who are capable and also qualified. You know, in some cases, when you're bringing people into a new organization, there's going to be some type of training process and, you know, rough around the edges, grinding out, making sure that square peg fits into a square hole and it's not a square peg in a round hole. But, you know, that friction, those sparks, I think, give you a good baseline of like how a person handles stress. You know what I mean? Because you can do an assessment, you can have somebody that's qualified, you can have somebody that's talented, but like they haven't been in the fire with you, right? You haven't experienced loss with that.
Calamity actually shows true character.
Oh, it's, to me, the greatest teller of a person's character is how they handle calamity or failure. You know, and you can, when success is there, it's very easy for people to get fired up, and you're, you know, making money, you're selling deals, you're selling leads, whatever, you know, you're putting on a bunch of roofs, and you know what I mean? And things are great, but you know, what happens when a bill doesn't get paid? What happens when you get in some litigation over something? And I think to me, more than anything else, that's when I really see where a person's at. You know, I had a pastor that always used to say, you know, you never really know what's in someone's cup until somebody bumps it. And when you bump that cup, you find out really quickly what's on the inside. You know, like, are they a person who's like, hey, no matter what the problem is, let's figure out a solution, let's do it together? Or are they so rattled by it that that's the only thing that they can focus on? They're not focused on the solution. They're just so hyper fixated on the problem, right? And the problem becomes bigger and bigger and bigger as you ruminate over it, right? As you sit there and meditate on it. And I mean, a lot of times you don't find that out about people until they're really in the fire.
That actually felt like a punch in the chin right now, because we're kicking somewhere else, because I think I'm both.
Yeah.
I think it depends on, I think normally if I get rattled, I could rebound quickly and just get to solution. But depending on how much is going on at the time, or where my spiritual condition is, how much God is in my life, right? It's then dictate, like, yeah, it's actually a good look in the mirror, because you make me start thinking, like, do I show up that way during all calamity? I think most of the time, yes.
Yeah, but I do think too, though, Ed, and this is what I'll say about you, like, there should be a tension that it happens that's put on a problem when it reveals itself, right? There should be a shock of like, okay, how did this happen, right? There should be, like, you know, as a coach, like if you ever saw me coach, it's really interesting, because a lot of what you would see, it's kind of counterintuitive to my personality. I'm very laid back. I'm very reserved. I don't like raising my voice. I don't like confrontation a lot. But like as a coach, I realized like there were times where I had to raise my voice to get people's attention. There were times where I had to, get a kid and get in their face and like let them know. And the level of intensity was intentional because I knew that there was a problem that we needed to fix, and I think that that's your reaction a lot of times to a problem is an indicator for the people that you're leading that, hey, they need to come up with a solution quickly, and I think that's a part of, I think, a leader's responsibility. If I was telling one of the girls that worked with us last week, like, and she was just really rattled by some of the things that were going on from a financial standpoint. She has limited access into the big picture. But I said, one of the things I want to tell you is like, if you really want to know the level of concern that you have, look at your leader. Look at me. If you see concern from me, there might be a little bit of a problem. If you don't see any concern from me at all, and there's fire, there's bombs going off, there's all these things, everything's burning down around us, you've got to know that I have a really good piece. Problems and calamity and failure sometimes surround success. Sometimes they are a precursor to success. And the only way you know that, though, is, if you've walked through the fire, if you've seen things that you thought were so great, so awesome, blow up, or things burn down, and you were so disappointed that happened, but you didn't know right around the corner was a new opportunity, a new relationship, something that was even bigger. And this goes back to like my faith. I have a firm belief and conviction in the fact that God has exceedingly abundantly more than we could ever hope, dream, or imagine in store for those of us who love him. That's what the Bible says. So like, although I might think like things are burning down, well, maybe things didn't need to burn down in order for something else to be built.
I love that. I think that my dad taught me this. My dad wasn't an entrepreneur in any way, shape, or form. He was a blue collar, hard worker, worked at the same company for like 40 years kind of mindset, right? That died as lower middle class and lived his whole life lower middle or middle class. And nothing wrong with that. But he did teach me calamity breeds opportunity. He was talking at the time when he moved to Oklahoma for his only really job change is Edmonds had a tornado go through and wipe out the entire community. And he was struggling economically, so he went down there to help rebuild houses. And he, at that point, had an opportunity to have years and years and years of work and opportunity, end up staying there until he retired. And he told me calamity breeds opportunity. And now I think of it in my own career, where the biggest shift to wealth. I think of it when I was in marketing, when I first got into marketing in early 2000, when the first recession came in 2007, 2008, 2009, I made the most money because people were willing to spend, but cognizant of where they spend. I thought about COVID. Even thinking about right now with downtimes right now, some of my companies are struggling, but I feel like there's another big shift of wealth about ready to being exchanged again, because there's something brewing, which means there's going to be a lot of opportunity somewhere from someone.
We've been through a couple of those shifts, right? And it's funny because nobody's struggling right now. Just ask them, right? Like whether it's a podcast or reel or social media, like you rarely hear anyone talk about their business is struggling. But when we go to the shows, when we're in the rooms and it's just us, we know it's a tough time right now. It's a tough time in just about every single business. And I don't know anyone that's crushing it. I mean, they might say they're crushing it, but at the end of the day, like there's this, to your point, like pain points, right? One of the pain points of entrepreneurship is having all of this happen around you. You're not doing well. And then having the conviction deep in your heart to continue to press on, knowing that, like, I mean, your dad taught you such a great lesson, right? And one thing I'll say, like, as much as like people are struggling right now, which I think unilaterally, especially in the lead gen space, there's so much changing, automation, augmentation, AI, people not paying bills, big insurance companies going out of business, big home services companies going out of business, everything that's happened with solar, everything that's happened with finance. We've been in this before, though. And this is a familiar, it's different, it looks different, but man, I do have a sense that right now, the energy that's building when you talk to people, right? The excitement about what's next, it's there. and there's an undercurrent of it that you feel, that I feel like is palatable in the face of people really struggling right now just to be successful, because it's hard. Like, these businesses are all very difficult.
I love the seasonality. I learned this years ago, probably about 7 years ago, and it's interesting to kind of look at being an entrepreneur for quite some time now. I get to see the seasonality of it, and the way it was phrased that I digested it is, when you have winter, nothing grows, right? But then you have spring is when you plant seeds, and then summer, things are growing and blooming. Then you got fall where things slow down, and then that means winter is coming again. And winter is inevitable. Now the length of winter varies. You got the Great Depression, you got COVID, you got 2008, 2009. It was 2-3 years. So winter is inevitable, but it also means that spring is coming.
Yeah.
And so when you're in winter, which I think we're in right now for a lot of industries, that means you plant seeds. Because if you're not planting seeds at this time, you're not going to be in a position to rebound once things start bearing fruit. So I think the maturity and understanding that business calamity, hard times happen, things struggle for a period of time. Don't be oblivious to the fact there's winter going around for a lot of business and a lot of industry. The idea is, am I planting the right seeds?
I love that. I love the analogy of planting a seed and watching it grow, because it takes time and it needs sun. There's so much that needs to happen. But even like before you plant a seed, you've got to make sure that there's fertile ground, right? And
For sure.
I'm not a farmer, and I've only grown maybe a couple of things in my life. I've grown a couple of kids. Thank God. My daughter's about to graduate, so I'm super excited about that. But I know that there's a process of finding fertile ground, and then sometimes with fertile ground, you've got to break it up, and that requires work, manual labor, and because I think sometimes people can just sow seed. You're sowing seeds, you're throwing them out there, and you're just hoping, but like being more strategic and more analytical and more intentional about where you're sowing those seeds and making sure that you're sowing those seeds in fertile ground, it becomes, I think, a little easier. I know for me, learning from you, like watching where you sow your seeds, making sure that like I'm looking to sow seeds in fertile ground, and sometimes that's where a lot of people are sowing seeds, but sometimes it's where no one is sowing seeds.
I've always made most of my wealth in niches.
Yeah.
I do got 2 questions for you. This is actually an interesting segue. I feel like as an entrepreneur sometimes that we get so emotionally tied to what we do, right? Like, I'll give an example. I was in lead gen for so long. I'm actually coming back into it again, but the reality of it is it got hard. The margins shrunk. It was twice the work, half the pay every year. Like you're saying, people not paying bills. And as an entrepreneur, sometimes I feel like sometimes I stay in things, or I can't see the forest through the trees past its expiration date. So when you talk about planting seeds, talk about some of the navigating that you've done, like in business, where you've actually probably maybe stayed in businesses too long, but also how do you navigate to identify the fertile grounds and stay diversified to replant your seeds in fresh soil, knowing that there's a change coming, and to kind of position yourself for change. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
No, it does. Yeah. I mean, look, like, I'm terrible at staying in relationships longer than I should. Like, I'm a little emotionally handicapped. I tell every person that I'm in a relationship with, like, hey, I want you to know I'm emotionally handicapped, right? Like, I just am. Like, I a lot of times see things.
Lucky for me.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for you. I see things with rose-colored glasses, and I think that one of the things that I've had to do though is really more market research. Like, really get granular with talking, not just with people that I know that are successful, but people who are struggling in different fields. I think by going all the different shows, whether it's Vegas, whether it's New York, or whether it's one of the international shows, like just getting good information from people about what not only is currently going on, but what has gone on in the past, but also projections for the future, right? Like, what do you think about this? And like, I think the people that we're surrounded with or surrounded by have so much experience in not just one vertical, but so many different verticals. And I think a lot of times success in any of these businesses can be vertically agnostic, but when it comes to specific verticals, there's a seasonality to every business, right? Like you don't want to get involved if you have a roofing company and you're in Seattle. I don't think you'd want to start your business in October, right? Like you start your business in October, you probably wouldn't have put a roof on until 6 months later, right? So there's 6 months where you have to pay people, you have to pay for processes, systems, technology without any money coming in, right? And so understanding, I think, the seasonality of some of these businesses, like from a vertical standpoint, I have an insurance agency, Medicare, right? There's a couple of great times. There's annual enrollment period and then there's open enrollment period. And those are really rich times. Outside of those seasons, there's special enrollment periods. But really, if you're only selling that specific product or service, you're going to be losing money. And if you didn't save, you didn't project, you didn't understand that, and I didn't. I mean, it was the first 2 years where you're just
Cash flow is key in all business, right? It's
all
if you don't
businesses.
understand cash flow, it's you can break yourself quick.
quick, right? So, I mean, I think I was maybe 2 years, over $1 million of cash just dumping into it, where I finally asked myself, is this fiscally responsible? Like, am I like, I've never spent that much money on anything else in my life, and I'm dumping it back into business, dumping it back into other people, hoping for a return. Now, I started to understand the seasonality of that business. I started to understand the systems and processes and technology that we needed in order to grow that business. And listen, I mean, anytime you get involved in any new business, you're only going to know so much, right? Like that's why it's important to have great mentors, like have people, like if you're going to get into a new business, find the people that are around you that are super successful.
I think that's what I love most about you is that you're not afraid to say, I don't know what I don't know. Some of the people that you've exposed me to, like Appos or some of the other people that you've met, the people that are successful, you pick their brain. You do understand, you do uncover, you do ask questions, you do point of discovery, like, hey, I don't understand. So that's always been fun to watch the humility in that, not just say, hey, I know the answers, because you're a figure it out kind of guy. You have that piece of you, like that's just who you are as like a coach, a mentor, when you disciple or whatever. But I think it's transcended into business where you're coachable as well.
Yeah, I try to really, when it comes to those relationships where they're giving me information, I try not to ask for anything until I've first given them something. If it's a new lead vendor or a new system or new process or new angle when it comes to their businesses, if I hear something that I know will help friends of mine's businesses, I'm shooting them a message right away. You know what I mean?
I do want to transition into, so thanks for that honesty and transparency. The next thing that kind of segued into is navigating and the change. Well, I think one of the things that you've been really good at is the innovation. Is to kind of understanding trends and changes and things that you had to do. So I think this is a great segue to talk about, one, consolidating cost, but also the impact of AI. And I know people use it loosely. You guys are actually people that are doing it. So not like on a chat GBT kind of level or Plum or whatever. It's
we've been at it for a while.
Yeah. So can you kind of talk about the transition to navigating these low spots, but also using technology and kind of how you diversified your business, not just for yourself, but now offering solutions to other businesses?
Yeah, I mean, I think it started really, look, we got involved in Medicare, right? And Medicare in a lot of ways is archaic. I mean, it's really now you've seen it develop the last couple of years when it comes to technology and reporting, all these systems and processes, but none of it was there when we first started.
But even Medicare has CMS, it has guidelines. Anything government is going to be bipolar, for lack of a better word. It's going to be turbulent.
It's going to be turbulent, right? So how can we navigate through that turbulence, right? Tools, processes, resources. Like I love tech, you know what I mean? I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed when it comes to tech, but I understand the use case for a lot of it. And I mean, I think maybe like 10 years ago, I got approached by some guys that had some type of AI technology and they were looking to get it involved in the call center space. And so we built out like a user interface, and then we started to implement that with insurance companies, and they had success. And so I was like, wow, okay, so here's a piece of technology that a company like ours is utilizing in their business to generate more revenue, cut down costs. And so, I mean, I was just selling a third-party software solution back then. So, it went on maybe like a 3 or 4 year run. Things changed. The industry changed. I got away from it. And then I always wanted to get back into it. So maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, we met some guys that had some technology. And I was like, okay, wow, what does this technology do? And we started to like pull it apart, and we're like, oh, wow, like this is something that we really want to invest in. Really, we wanted to take it to market. The first thing was like, how do we perfect it for ourselves first?
And I love that too, because you're the use case, right? You're not,
I know.
you're not leading with the chin out there and ruining your name and image and reputation. You're going to go through all the pitfalls, the downturns, the issues, the systems failing,
Real product review, like a real product review. Like I'm not just the president, I'm a customer.
Yes.
Right. And so,
but actually,
yeah. And I didn't know how much it would cost. I think in 2 years, we probably spent like $5 million. You know what I mean? We were just dumping all the money we were making back into the technology, and we saw it take off. But I think, look, like even in the since February, something's changed significantly.
shifted.
It's huge, right? And the people that are really deep in the weeds when it comes to AI, they know. But we knew that, we were in Miami for Affiliate Takeover. Had a great event. And I saw one of the panelists speak, and they asked a very general question. And it's funny because I didn't hear the whole conversation, but I did hear this question in particular. And the person that was leading the panel asked, they said, what would be one thing that you would want everybody here to know this next year that they need to be really focused on when it comes to building a successful business? And one of the guys shared, I'd stop using third-party SaaS. And I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah. And there was actually a major SaaS player will even
our friend. Yeah, our friend. And at first I thought it was like a little sarcastic. I thought maybe like it was a joke because everybody kind of chuckled. But then I pushed myself away from it, and I went back and I started looking at all the money that we spend on third-party SaaS, and some of it you have to, right? You need technology, you need tools, you need things that are going to be able to give you real-time reporting when it comes to your business. You need call routing tools and systems and processes, and that's great. But when you look at the amount of money that you're spending on those third-party products and services, and you realize like, wow, that's money I could be paying my people. That's money that we could be driving to our bottom line if we could reduce the cost of that. So, Dobie, who's my partner, really was like, hey, man, I'm starting to build. We saw Jason Atkiff. I started to hear people that were in our circles starting to implement AI in a different way into their business to build out third-party SaaS products and services that they could own that would be a fraction of the cost, right? And so that just skyrockets your bottom line.
And that's where I love what you guys are doing, not just for your own companies, but and I won't get into this on this, and people can dig in or reach out to you if they want to know more. But even the price points that you guys are selling things at, you guys have a roofing CRM, for instance, that you guys built, and it's priced where you're not doing per license. It's going to be capped out at X amount of dollars. So even if somebody wants to build out, or had the ability to build out, or even had the wherewithal how to scope out a project or what it takes to build out tech, it's priced where they're never going to have to do it. But if you're paying exorbitant amounts, I know for me, I remember Salesforce, when I had a national company, I was paying over $50,000 a month on storage alone, right? I was so pot committed into Salesforce. The reality for me is that like nowadays, if you're dropping that 6-figure income on a CRM, build your own, right? It's but now so not only is the technology there, but if you are going to be in this recurring revenue model or built out SaaS products, you can't price yourself out where people will figure it out themselves.
Yeah. Right. Give people a great product that performs a great service
at a great price.
That's priced in a way that will disrupt the market.
Yes.
How could they say no?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
But they do, because I think ignorance.
Yeah.
Fortunately, you only know what you know.
You only know what you know, but you got to get into it, right? Like I've overpaid for products and services, and after you're just kicking yourself because you're like, I just spent how much on what? You know what I mean? Like it's just whatever. It's like, when you have a great meal, you don't really worry about the price. When you have an okay meal and you spend a lot of money, you're like, man, I just spent how much on what? You know what I mean? Look, and let's be honest, like everything is more expensive now. Gas is more expensive. Food is more expensive. Like it's tough, man. So, as a business owner, like you're responsible for being a faithful steward of what you've been entrusted with.
So let's talk about that right now. And I appreciate the tech and the build out. Let's talk about some of the cutting costs, because that's the reality. You either increase pricing, you cut margin and costs and operational costs. And it seems like there's really only two ways to really grow a business nowadays besides top line revenue. But most times, just by increasing top line doesn't mean you're more profitable, right? It's because if you're selling things at a lesser price, or if you're having raised prices when all your prices have gone up, how do you navigate it? Some of the cost challenges in the verticals or the companies that you own?
Not well. I mean, really, like you usually catch up with a lot of that after the fact.
Right.
You're looking back, right? Because I had a friend of mine who used to always say this, and then, when I first heard it, I never really understood it, but you don't want to operate in the tyranny of the urgent. You want to be super proactive. You want to make sure that like you dot every I, cross every T. And when it comes to business, there's variables that are outside of your control. But I think more times than not, when I've made those mistakes, they were because I was rushed, because I was pushed into something, because I was pushing too hard, because I was dead set on doing something that I had no business doing. Even though I thought I was being innovative, I was really being foolish because I didn't look at the long-term cost of the risk of what happens if this doesn't work, right? The whole risk reward thing. And I think for us as entrepreneurs, like our risk tolerance is so high sometimes we can be so convinced, and we're convincing ourselves of the fact that this is going to work, even when all the evidence supports something contrary, right?
It's interesting you do that, because now every time I go into a new venture, I have a R&D sheet, and I identify what it means to win going in. Identify the risk I'm willing to take, the economic risk, what it means to succeed, what's beta look like, when do I pull out. I identify that day one, instead of getting in and say, what do I do now? Like kind of like this audible in the middle. Now I may choose to redo it post that inauguration phase, but I've learned, actually, this is one of the biggest lessons I've had to learn the hard way, is what does it mean to succeed going in? Or what does it mean to fail going in? And being okay with either or, right? Versus like, hey, I love my people, I love this. It's kind of, if everyone understands what it means to fail, and we do, now we can pull the plug and it's not this. So let's rephrase the question in a different way, not handling it well. If you were going to redo it again today, if I was going to say, Sean, I'm going to get you back in this space, whether it's lead gen, whether it's Medicare, if you were going to start today, how would you do it differently?
I've learned from you, right? Like I've been in those meetings where you're going into something with the end in mind, right? Like that's really what I want to do. Like any business, any new opportunity, I want to really clearly define like what my exit strategy is, right? Like if I want to sell, right? If I do want to just build something, grow it, keep it as a cash producing asset, you know what I mean? Like whatever it is, I'm really going into that new opportunity with the end in mind. And having the conversations and communicating very clearly like what my directive is, and if there's other people that are involved, like hashing out all the hard things in the beginning, like, hey guys, let's talk best case scenario, let's talk worst case scenario, let's talk just as much as we can about everything in between. I think having a format and a plan for that, like what you did, and I've seen you do it for the past couple of years. So I've seen you do it enough now where I've implemented it into my own processes. And I think the more strategic you can be about like where you're headed in the beginning, the more clear you can be with the communication of what everyone's expectations are. You're going into a project like, hey, there's 3 of us as partners. Like, who needs to get paid from this? That's typically not a conversation that most people have early on, because you're thinking about the future, right? And then you get into it, maybe only one person needs to get paid, but there's a resentment that starts to build up because that conversation wasn't had in the beginning. So there's lack of communication, there's frustration, or there's a lack of trust. What happens with the relationships? They erode over time. And I think so for me, like going into a new opportunity with the end in mind, and then like really being strategic and intentional about having those tough conversations up front about what everybody's expectations are, is key.
I think as an entrepreneur, and I'm guilty of that. I know for me, at first, I don't want to work for the man, or my back's against the wall, or I start something, and then all of a sudden I get to this point, like, what do I do now? And we've talked about this before. You and I are blessed with great circles of mentors where shoulder to shoulder, it's like we have people and resources that we could bounce things off of. However, most of the time, I don't even know what questions to ask until I'm there, right? Like I have a bad partner. What do I do? Like if, hey, you said the end in mind. Most business owners get in so they can make money, and they make okay money. They may get to, and okay looks different for everyone else, but they don't go into it thinking of an exit. I don't think of a retirement. They think of it like, I just need a job, or I need to make some money today. Then all of a sudden they're making 100, 200, 300,000 a year profit maybe on, and now they're like, now what? Oh, now they actually have a vision. But the thing is, they don't even know what to reverse engineer or what questions to ask, because they kind of get to this level of success that now it introduces new questions. And so I think for me, a lot of times with, especially in construction and a small business in particular, is that's most of the guys I end up mentoring are in that. And I get it, right? Nowadays, when like you said, now I know enough to say, hey, when I enter a company, what's the end of mine? What's my number? I always say, right? Is it 5 million? Is it 10 million? And my number now is 100 mil, right? Once I make 100 mil, my number is going to change. But the point in that is if I don't know what my number is, I don't know what I'm willing to take for this business, nor do I know how to reverse engineer the process. And I love that mindset, because it's like, let's just say roofing, for instance. If I have a company that's running itself, good contracts, maybe a couple government contracts, couple commercial contracts, warranty, I've steady growth over the last 3-4 years, and I make 5 million in top line and 20% EBITDA. That means I'm making $1 million a year profit. I could probably exit that company around 10 million to 13 million, because it has systems, processes. I'm not the bottleneck in the process.
Yeah.
That same company, if I'm running everything at 20% EBITDA and I don't have processes, systems, and flows, I may get a 2 or 3 exit. And now all of a sudden I left $7 million on the table because I didn't have the end in mind. Now for me, if my number was 10, 13, or 10 million bucks, I have to work 10 times harder to get that top line to exit. And the reason why that's so important, because it tells me how do I structure and when do I start the planning period to exit. But if I don't have the end in mind, I don't even know what questions to ask to get there. So it's interesting that you said that. And I think I feel with a lot of young entrepreneurs, most of us are just really good at negotiating, but I don't think self included, I don't think I was a good businessman. I think I had to learn through my failures. I had to have people smarter than me in the room to challenge me with those questions to even know what are those potential answers.
What was it was there a moment that shifted or something that you could remember where you were like, okay, I have to now approach this differently? Because really it's a big difference. And like, hey, how do we survive and grow? And then how do I now have an idea on where we're headed with an end goal in mind?
I think it's 2 things. I think one of the things I'm really good at is plagiarizing. Nothing I've ever said has been original.
Yeah.
It's like, I think when certain people say things, certain things hit the radar a little bit different. And I think I always say when the student's ready, the teacher comes, I may have heard something 100 times, but for whatever reason at that phase of life, it resonated differently. I think 2 things happened for me is, one, I had a CEO that we had a burn rate of 20 million a year to grow.
Wow.
And we went national in 1 year. We went from 1 city to 77 cities in 1 year. Now, what happened in that, we had the end in mind. He taught me performance. He taught me CFOs. He taught me how to have conversations, how to do financial forecasting, week over week analysis, month over month analysis, marketing strategy, go to market strategies, how it meant different in a tier 1 versus tier 2 versus tier 3. Things that I inherited with enterprise companies, but I never experienced until I did it myself. And the why of it finally made sense to me. But what he taught me was we didn't have systems or right processes. So he was a great visionary, but we imploded on ourselves. And I said, I'm never going to do that to another company again. But what he taught me at that point was to think of the end in mind. But if I wasn't exposed to him, I would never even known those questions to ask. But it also taught me the importance of processes and systems and scalability. It's not even so much so the company fails. I'm like you. I'm very people committed. I love my people. I'm in business because of my people, my peers, the shoulder to shoulder. I love breeding success with people I love. And I love the fact we feed off of each other and we have the same end in mind. And so for me, it's not so much about the business. I don't want to let people that trust me down. And that's my biggest fear, right? It's my family, it's friends, it's people that trust me with their economics and the business and the strategy and the vision, and that's my biggest fear in business. But yeah, that's where I learned it. But I learned it through plagiarism, because I was finally around people making millions at the time I thought was unheard of. One, it taught me it was possible. And then once I did it, it shifts the mindset, right? It's kind of like when, like you talked about, like when you start talking about, I spent 5 million on SaaS, most people are like, I wish I had 5 million to spend. What are you doing? Right? But now that you've done it, you don't think in thousands. You don't think in hundreds of thousands. You can only think in millions, right? And it's like billionaires can only think in billions, right? And so I think for me, it's the mind shift happens once I got there and I plagiarized and I learned that I am capable too of the accomplishments.
So funny. I thought of Hamilton. I want to be in the room where it happened. Think about your circle. Right? Think about the people that have impacted you, the things that you've learned from the people. You have to be in the right rooms with the right people. And I think we live in a social media driven society where in some ways we're connected to so many more people, but in other ways we're so disconnected from so many people. Because there's this lack of transparency, lack of vulnerability. I mean, the people that I really like are the people that are really transparent, the people that are really vulnerable. That's what resonates with me more than anything else. And I find a lot of like inspiration from those people just being themselves, but like you don't really see a lot of that. There's a lot of disconnect when it comes to like really probing people, getting to know people at like a deeper level. Even though we're all connected, we don't really know each other that well. And I think that takes time, right? It takes time. You have to get around the right people. We have to pedal to that. You have to go through the war, and you don't win every war. And a lot of times you might win and you don't even know why you won. You know what I mean?
Those are the best though.
Providence, right? Those are the best. Like, no, I'm not, we were watching I don't know if you watched the New York Knicks game last night, but my family's from Cleveland. I turned on and I was like, oh man, the Knicks, I can't stand the Knicks. I'm a Heat fan. So South Florida, everything, we always got some beef with New York, but Cleveland was up, I think at one point, maybe 24, 25 points in the third, and so I was, talking trash about New York to some friends and, I'm watching the game and slowly but surely New York's Jalen Brunson was just going off.
They came back in.
They went on a 44-11 run, to finish the game. And they won by like, I think 8 or 9 points in overtime. I was just like, what just happened? And man, to watch New York, like you can say what you want about New York. You can say what you want about the Knicks, but the Garden, watching the Garden rocking, and I mean, I just thought a lot about like the players on the New York Knicks had to be so confident that even then, I think ESPN had at the 7-minute mark, the Cleveland Cavaliers had a 99.9% chance of winning that game with 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, but every single Knicks player, and you could see they had this confidence that no matter how bad they were down, no matter what was happening, they were confident that they could win. And that belief, I think, compelled them to achieve something that, I mean, I believe that they felt they could, but me as a fan, I was like, yo, there's no way the Knicks are going to win this game. Sure enough, boom, they hit a three. Boom, they hit a three. Jalen Brunson is just,
he went up 40-some points. That's incredible.
Such a great, like to see a short guard, man, a guy that's from that area, a guy that has ties to the Knicks, you know what I mean? It was just really, really cool. But like, there was this confidence in the face of adversity that I need to have as an entrepreneur, right? I'm down 20, I'm down 10 with 7 minutes left. I still have the ability to be successful. I still have the ability to be able to put the ball in if I have hope, if I really have confidence that that can happen. The minute I lose that, things start to fall apart and I lose, and then what, right? Well, it's only game one. It's a 7-game series. So Cleveland still has an opportunity.
This pod went a bipolar opposite where I thought it was going to impact, which actually though reminds me why I think you're going to be so successful and have been so successful and will continue to be. You brought up a lot of different things. Trust the team. We brought up a lot of analogies like iron sharpens iron, and that's what I love about the non-scarcity mindset. I don't care if it's you rising or me rising. What I love about our relationship is that if one of us rise, we both are creating the opportunity for the other person to come along with. It's not like this selfish, greedy child making this impossible. This is for Santa Claus saying, I want what I want when I want. It's kind of like, no, come along. And so you brought up a lot of the team mentality, the success, the hope, the faith, and all those things come from experience with the people that you're around, right? You're only as good as the team you build, right? So you can't do it. You can't do it alone. You can't do it by yourself. You got to have faith. You're going to have some failures, but more often than not, if you have the right systems, processes, team around you, culture, you're going to succeed. And every once in a while, that Hail Mary, that 0.1% of success takes place.
That's right.
Right. So I guess in ending with this, and just out of curiosity, is like too, for a shameless plug, if you were gonna kind of shout out whatever product or service that you're most excited about, what is that? Because I know you wear multiple hats in multiple industries. Is it the CRM? Is it like especially around the construction space or whatnot? And then secondly, how do people find you if they want to get a hold of Sean?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn, Sean Sean, last name Dougherty, Dougherty. If you shoot me a message, I'll respond immediately. My email, my cell phone number, like I want people to have access to me more than anything else. I'm really excited about the technology, the CRM for roofing. There's really nothing out there that's like it. It's priced in a way that'll make it easier for the user. It'll be a good berry.
I love the fact that's all in one product. You don't have to use 2 or 3 different systems. It's already the end in mind.
Yeah, the end in mind. The end in mind. Getting involved in home services with you, roofing specifically, I'm super, super stoked and excited about that. I'm really excited too about lead gen, which is weird because I don't think the last couple of years we've been as excited. I think there's been so many different changes, so many different turns, so many different obstacles, so many people coming and going. I remember when, a couple of years ago, people first started talking about media buyers, we're like, what is a media buyer? And I mean, now through automation, augmentation, like there's new opportunities in lead gen that have never been there before, but there's still the same need for lead gen. Every business needs leads to come into their company. So if you're an insurance company, if you're a finance company, if you business loans, home services, like I think there's really no one that can do some of the things that we can do from a lead gen standpoint, from organic, hey, we're just going to do it for one client, to across the board, different verticals, different opportunities. There's just so much there.
And across all media types.
All media types.
It's not just Meta. It's
CTV. Yeah. I mean, every social media platform, there's still radio, there's still print, like there's still so many, but like from a digital standpoint right now, I think the opportunity to be able to get consumers to raise their hand or to get consumers in the door, we've never seen it like it is now. So I'm really, really excited about those things.
Awesome, brother. Whoa, man. Thanks again for being on the pod, man. Yeah, I love you. I love you too, brother.
And pain points, baby. Pain points.
Real pain equals real growth.
Are you stuck in that $3 to $10 million year-over-year revenue? Roofs in a Box is your all-in-one growth partner for modern construction companies. They combine AI, virtual staffing, and CRM solutions to help streamline operations. Replace your high fixed overhead with cost-effective systems and support. They empower you to run a smarter, leaner business, freeing up capital where it matters most. Mention this ad to save 10% on your next Roofs in a Box purchase. This episode of Pain Points is brought to you by Ringba. If your business relies on phone calls, you need to be working with them. Their technology will help you get the most money out of your marketing campaigns. Their call exchange, Ringba X, can deliver inbounds on demand to help grow your customer base. Now, I want to be transparent. Ringba and Adam did pay me to deliver that message, but I'm also a customer, and I've watched them help dozens of companies become more successful over the years. So if you sell a product or service over the phone, I guarantee a moment with their team will be worth it.